Hello and welcome back to our series of videos about cardiac physiology. In this video, we are going to be talking about electrocardiogram. So electrocardiogram is abbreviated ECG or EKG based on like a German spelling of the word. And it's a useful diagnostic tool for heart function, okay? The way it works is this. We attach pairs of electrodes to the body surface, okay, um, to form what we call leads. So one lead is a pair of electrodes. So here we have, this is one lead right here. This is lead one, this negative electrode, positive electrode, and then this pair of electrodes right here is lead three. This pair of electrodes right here is lead two, okay? The way that EKG works, oh, sorry, forgot to mention. So traditionally, like kind of in the old days, EKG was 3 leads as illustrated in this figure, but modern EKGs now are 12 leads, okay? So the way it works is that each lead basically picks up signals coming from the heart that reach the body surface. Okay, so remember that we have action potentials coming from the heart, from both the pacemaker cells and the contractile cells. Those are going to make it to the body surface where they can be picked up by these leads. Okay, let's talk about what an EKG trace looks like with a little bit of a prelude to that. Okay, so basically an EKG or ECG is going to reflect the summed electrical activity of the myocardial cells, so both the pacemaker cells and the contractile cells. Okay, if we look at this contractile cell action potential, this is just a reminder of its shape. I just want to point out that an EKG does not look like this, okay? There are several reasons for that, okay? One is that we are summing the action potentials from several cells in the heart, okay? So they're not necessarily going to retain this shape. Another is that once we take that summed signal, it's going to have to travel from the heart to the body surface. And as it does that, the signal kind of degrades. It also doesn't quite look the same, okay? And then I think most importantly is that each lead is going to represent like sort of a view of the electrical activity of the heart from one angle, right? So if you imagine kind of like looking at a person from different angles, right? You're going to look at them from the front, look at them from the side, look at them from the back. They look pretty different from those different angles. Same thing is going to happen to that electrical signal that's going to come from the heart. And so the EKG trace that we see when we record the heart's electrical activity from the skin surface doesn't look like this. Okay. Oh, another thing I want you to take note of is that the EKG signal is a lot smaller than a contractile cell action potential. That's because this action potential is like recorded right at the membrane surface of the contractile cell. This is 110 millivolts. It's going to basically act, that whole electrical signal from the heart is going to basically act like a graded potential. It's going to travel to the body surface, and as it does that, it degrades, okay? So, so we get something that looks like this, okay? So if you look here, look at that scale, 1 millivolt, that is a lot smaller than 110 millivolts. Okay, so now that I've prefaced EKGs, let's take a look at what an EKG trace looks like, okay? So an EKG recording is gonna look like you're gonna have a baseline voltage and then some deviations from that baseline voltage. The deviations from the baseline voltage we refer to as waves, okay? And then in between the waves, those areas of baseline voltage, we refer to as segments, okay? We have a very stereotypical set of waves that we see with our ECG recording. Let's take a look at those, okay? So first we have this little blip, okay? We call that the P wave, and the P wave represents atrial depolarization. So depolarization of the atria, okay? Next up, we have the QRS complex, which is actually made up of three separate waves, the Q wave, the R wave, and the S wave, but they kind of all squish together in the same time. So we just group them together and we call them the QRS complex. And they represent ventricular depolarization. And then finally, we have the T wave here, which represents ventricular repolarization, okay? So all of this is going to represent one heartbeat in the heart. I also want to mention that atrial repolarization, you might be wondering, like, what happened to atrial repolarization? It actually happens at around the same time as the QRS complex. And since the QRS complex is such a big signal, the signal for atrial repolarization kind of gets lost in there.